Hello everybody! This video is going to be one about making decisions in groups, and we're going to focus largely on groupthink. But before we get to that, I want to talk about group decision making in general. If you read many general psych books, you often get the impression that people should just avoid trying to make decisions in groups. You often read about the woes of trying to do that. But in general, provided groups are employing certain tactics while making their decisions, groups do actually tend to make better decisions than individuals do. But only when they make the decision, they make efforts to engage in certain strategies that make their decisions better. So what are some of those strategies? Well, they need to rely on their experts. Anybody can look up anything these days, and especially since we all have these, and people tend to, I think this point of relying on experts is especially relevant today because we can look up things. People tend to think because they can find something online that, well, then I know it. Well, knowing something, or at least knowing, being able to talk about something and then understanding the implications, the consequences, the processes involved in a topic, that's quite different. So relying on experts tends to be one strategy, one successful strategy in making group decisions better. Encouraging debate among members. Oftentimes, I won't say oftentimes, but sometimes groups can get into situations where a person has offered a particular decision option and others won't offer alternatives. That's bad. As long as groups make a concerted effort to encourage debate when alternatives are available, they tend to come out with better decisions. Searching for those alternatives. Groups that make a decision to try and search out alternative decision options tend to make better decisions. Seeking out additional information about the options that they're considering. When groups make a decision to do this, they tend to make better decisions than individuals do. So when groups set out to do these things, they tend to do better than individuals in making decisions. They tend to make better decisions. But when these things, when certain circumstances begin to occur that make people or make groups rely less on their experts, seek out information less, discourage debate. When these things happen, groups experience something called process loss. They lose the process of making good decisions. All those strategies are involved in the process. All those strategies I mentioned, relying on experts, seeking out alternatives, seeking out additional information, brainstorming. These are all elements of the process of making a good decision. Well, certain elements can lead a group to not employ those strategies. And when that happens, they experience process loss. All right? They lose part of the process in making a good decision. Now, this is what brings us to groupthink, because groupthink is one of the situations in which we experience process loss. All right. So, when does groupthink occur? Well, we're going to go over the antecedents, so what can set groupthink up. But in general, groupthink occurs when maintaining the group becomes more important than making a good decision. That's when groupthink occurs. All right. So, and then that essentially is what groupthink is. Groupthink is the process loss caused by making the importance of maintaining a group greater than the importance of making a good decision. All right, so again, groupthink is caused by wanting to maintain the group, wanting us all to stick together more than making a good decision. Okay, so what kinds of things lead a group to value maintaining the group, keeping the group together over making a good decision? Well, I'm going to share the screen with you here. Share that screen. All right. So, we're going to talk about some of the antecedents. All right. So, first, a highly cohesive group. All right, now what does that mean? So if you look in your textbook, you will notice that cohesion are those elements of a group that bring them together, that keep them close. All right, so a highly cohesive group is a group that really feels close to one another. The members all feel tightly knit to one another. So highly cohesive groups can experience groupthink more easily than less cohesive groups. Again, remember that groupthink depends on the importance of staying together becoming more important than making a decision. So in these highly cohesive groups, remaining cohesive is important. Group isolation. So if a group removes itself from alternative ideas, you get greater chances of process loss due to groupthink. All right. So, remember that one of the strategies of good group decision making is seeking out alternatives. Well, if the group has isolated itself and it doesn't try to look at contrary viewpoints, it doesn't try to get additional information, then chances of groupthink go up. A highly directive leader. So when you have a leader that is focused on maintaining, they have a plan and they're going to see their plan through, these are highly directive leaders. Highly directive leaders contribute to groupthink. All right. So directive leaders, they tend to dominate the discussion. They tend to make their own desires very clear. And because of this, they can contribute to groupthink in a group. When a group is under a great degree of chances of groupthink go up. So suddenly, maybe the economy is bad or something like that. Stress is high. Now we all stick together. We're in this together. Maintaining the group becomes more important than making good decisions. And then one of probably the more obvious antecedents of groupthink is just having poor decision-making procedures. So if you're a person or if you're a group that surrounds yourself with yes men, yes women, I suppose, people who are only whose principal motive is to get something from you, or they just want to please you, then you're not seeking out people who want to debate. You're not seeking out alternative viewpoints, and so you're preventing some of those strategies we talked about before that lead to good decision making. So now you'll see the note on the bottom there. You don't have to have all of these for groupthink to occur. Any one or a couple of these could lead to groupthink if the situations are could lead to groupthink if the importance becomes placed on maintaining the group over making a good decision. But again, when you have a highly cohesive group, chances of that happening are higher. When you have an isolated group, chances of that are higher. You combine some of these, chances are higher still. Now, what happens once groupthink is happening? Once we've placed the importance of maintaining the group over making a good decision, what happens? Well, these are the symptoms of groupthink. So, you can read some of these, please do, but I'm going to highlight just a couple. All right. The first one I want to highlight is the second item on this list, and that's the illusion of unanimity. So unanimity, the illusion of unanimity is the illusion or the assumption that members of the group have that everyone is unanimous, that everyone agrees about about the decision that they're making. All right. So there's again, it's the illusion of unanimity. Somebody might not agree, but for some of the reasons we'll talk about a little bit later, they're not speaking up. And so people can maintain this idea that, well, we all thought it was a good idea, when that may not be true. But if groupthink is happening, then the chances of this belief, this misbelief that everybody agrees can be in place. The last two I want to mention are at the bottom there, and that's self-censorship and mind guards. All right. So self-censorship and mind guards are similar, but they're from a different agent. What do I mean by that? Well, so remember that with groupthink, there's again, the importance is on maintaining the group over making a good decision, and there's this illusion of unanimity. We all agree. Well, part of the reason the illusion of unanimity can be maintained is that when people don't necessarily agree with the group, they keep their mouths shut. They censor themselves. They engage in self-censorship. So they don't say anything, all right? And even then, if someone were to have a differing opinion than the group as a whole, if they tried to say something, usually other members of the group will silence them. So let's say that a person says, let's say the group is deciding to make, has made a decision, and one person speaks up and says, I don't know about that. That may not be the best idea. If other members of the group then turn to this individual with a certain degree of hostility and basically talk them down, they are becoming a mind guard. All right? Mind guards are members of the group who attempt to silence deviant opinions, specifically alternative viewpoints. All right, and again, remember that seeking out alternative viewpoints is a strategy in the process of good decision making. So with mind guards, you're losing that part of the process. Now, what are some of the consequences of these symptoms? Well, as I've kind of been mentioning repeatedly throughout this entire video, you have an incomplete survey of the alternatives. The group doesn't look for all alternative viewpoints. They don't look for alternative options that might be superior to theirs. What's more is they don't consider how their favorite alternative, the decision they want or that they're leaning towards, could they don't consider how it might mess up. What might be the negative complications of their preferred strategy. Also, item 3, they don't look for additional information. All right, because again, they want to. It's kind of like this. Although I've never seen anybody say this, but in a certain way, it's kind of like group confirmation bias. The group only wants information that confirms what they want to. They only want information that confirms the belief that their decision is a good one. And because they are so devoted to this idea, and many of them are convinced that many of them are convinced that it's the right decision. Those who aren't keep their mouths shut. But because those who are going with it are, because the group is convinced that it's the right decision, they don't make any contingency plans. They don't make any decisions about, well, what if this doesn't work? What if this isn't the best decision? What if we fail? Well, we would have a contingency plan. When groupthink is happening, that doesn't. People don't come up with contingency plans in case their preferred plan fails. And that, my friends, is the discussion of groupthink and group decision making that I wanted to make in this video. So again, we've talked about a couple of things. We've talked about the strategies of good group decision making. We've talked about process loss. We've talked about groupthink. We've talked about what leads to groupthink, what the symptoms of groupthink are, and then what the consequences of groupthink are. And that is it for this video. As always, if you have any questions, let me know. Other than that, take it easy.